here.
My pleasure, Aaron. Great to be with you this afternoon.
So when you hear that headline about what Iran's top diplomat is saying, what's your reaction to that?
Yeah, I read that quote, and I can understand it only from the Iranian perspective if I was in their diplomatic hat. So basically, what they're saying is they don't trust the U.S. in negotiations, and they really leaned in heavily to President Trump's tweets in insinuating that the messages are consistently changing. I will say, from a U.S. perspective, we have long not trusted Iran. In the last 24, 48 hours, what you've seen happen in the Strait of Hormuz, you've seen an Indian cargo ship that was sunk near Oman. And then you also saw a UAE anchored ship seized. Now, that's heading towards Iran. At least that was the last reporting, which tells us that Iran sent in military forces and basically stole a UAE ship. Now, Iran has targeted UAE multiple times. They are right across Strait of Hormuz, and they are a staunch ally of the United States.
Yeah, and you mentioned that the fact that they're an ally, that's an important point to make, Dr. Chabot, because that also is probably throwing a wrench into things as well as far as these peace talks go. And it all comes as President Trump is in China for that summit, which very well could end up being important in these talks as well, given China's role as being one of the biggest buyers of Iranian oil and petroleum.
You know, it is. And Trump, I said today basically that for this deal to work with Iran in the future, that they must agree to 20 years of no enrichment. So that is a big indicator because the past few weeks we've not seen that 20 years. We've known that that 20 years is what we've largely wanted. Iran was looking for a much smaller number, but for that to come out today, that is really putting down a marker in negotiations that for us to have any negotiations with Iran, they must agree to 20 years of no enrichment. Now, Trump's trip to China was largely uneventful. Both the US and China have agreed that A, the strait should be open and that Iran should not have nuclear weapons. But at the same time, China is an ally of Iran. They have a lot of investments throughout the Middle East and Asia, and they don't want to see a strong US either. But at least diplomatically, they are at least aligning with our main points. Open the strait and no nuclear Iran going forward.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting too that we're at this point with talks this week because the last couple of weeks it's felt like there's been hope going into the weekend, but then that hope ends up getting dashed. Now you have Iran's top diplomat coming out and saying, yeah, the lack of trust is really what's impeding the talks between the two countries. So it doesn't feel like there's any hope going into the weekend for any sort of deal to come out at this point. But I mean, you and I have talked how many times, Dr. Chabot, about it's hard to predict this war and where the two sides might be going.
It is difficult. And the bottom line for consumers here at home is we're paying more for gas. Gas today or oil today is above $100 a barrel. That's always a big sort of red line indicator. It's settling at about $108 a barrel today. That's a big impact. Now, President Trump has talked about basically halting the federal gas tax, but that has to go through Congress. And even if that's successful, that's only about 18.4 cents per gallon. Not a lot considering where consumers are paying. Now, states could certainly follow lead and eliminate or pause their gas tax, which range state by state anywhere between, I think, 40 to 70 to 80 cents. But still, the price of gas going forward is a big indicator. But there is some other good news out of this if I have to look away from the gas prices, which is tough because I've got 3 teenage daughters that are all driving, filling up their cars 3 times a week. But U.S. Central Command, Admiral Cooper was in front of Congress, and he did say that Operation Epic Fury has at least cut off funding ties to about 4 entities, which are terror networks that Iran has been funding. Also today, Intel came out, open source, that Iran is at full capacity for their oil storage. What that means is they can no longer store oil, which will require them to shut down their oil fields. That's a big economic impact to them going forward because when you shut down an oil field, you simply can't restart it. There's a lot that goes in and a lot of damage. Right now, Iran's losing about $435 million per day. So the economic squeeze is happening to them as well as to us here at home as consumers.
And the economics really might what gets both sides to the table in earnest at this point as well, Dr. Chabot. And you mentioned the gas prices, Michigan sitting at 487 right now, more than 30 cents above the national average. And we should point out that they're kind of dealing with a double whammy in the Midwest because of refinery issues as well.
Yeah.
But I know it's tough to predict at this point. What are you watching at this point for talks with Iran and where we're going in the next few days and weeks ahead?
I'm a little bit more pessimistic than I have been on previous segments. I would anticipate that a new operation will begin in strikes in Iran. I know Israel is at a new defense level of posture, which has been publicly recognized, which shows that they are getting ready for potential strikes. And the US, I think, at that impasse and seeing the Strait of Hormuz basically unopened really leads me to believe that additional strikes are going to likely occur in the next few days.
Yeah, and you look at Israel right now as well. Israel and Lebanon agreed to a 45-day extension of their ceasefire as well. So good news on that front, but certainly not as good a news as far as it goes involving Iran at this point.
Yeah, it's really not. The other item to look at is Congress. Congress today, I believe, or yesterday, they narrowly defeated a measure which would have really required Congress's approval for further military action. That was almost an even split, I think 212 to 212. So you picked up about 3 Republicans joining Democrats, 1 Democrat joining the Republicans. But the numbers are ticking up when you start counting congressional members and voting on war authorization going forward. That is something I would watch also, especially next week, is that kind of pressure from Congress and the administration and how the administration responds.
Retired Naval Intelligence Commander Dr. Paul Chabot, we know you'll be watching that along with us. We always appreciate your perspective. Thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks, Aaron. Have a great day.
You too. 40